Joining us now is Wisconsin Republican Congressman Mike Gallagher. He's a member of both the Intel Committee and the Armed Services Committee. Congressman Gallagher, good to see you. So I want to get your take on this. We have the FBI that seized over 1,000 documents that didn't have classified markings on them. They had news articles. We saw that they put out this photo, this staged photo from inside Trump's home. What's your take on the behavior of the FBI and the DOJ in this Trump raid?
Well, I agree with Ranking Member Turner in that there just has not been enough transparency for something of this magnitude, something this unprecedented. You would expect the FBI and the DOJ to go to great lengths to ensure they are conducting themselves with the highest level of professionalism, but they never notified our committee, which you would expect them to do if indeed there was a danger posed by the classified material that was in Donald Trump's possession. Never contacted our committee, and instead we have to learn about this stuff through the leaks that presumably they're feeding to the liberal media. That's unacceptable, and I think that further increases the skepticism that your average common sense American who's not obsessed with politics has about all this, because of course it comes amidst the backdrop of recent failures on behalf of FBI and DOJ leadership that really get to the heart of their credibility and the trust that Americans have in those institutions. Most notably, of course, you had the fact that the FBI relied upon unverified and what we now know to be inaccurate opposition research funded by the Clinton campaign to spy on the Trump campaign and abuse the FISA process. And as of yet, no one's been held accountable, Sean. No one has been held accountable for that massive abuse of power. I think that is the initial thing that caused a lot of people to lose faith in these institutions. Also, the head of the DOJ, Merrick Garland, right, who the liberal media assured us was a safe, slam dunk, moderate pick for a Supreme Court justice. Well, Merrick Garland, when he came into the job, weaponized the power of the DOJ to go after parents concerned at school board meetings and labeling them domestic terrorists, an unacceptable abuse of power. And then, of course, you have all these agencies currently being controlled by a president, President Biden, who just went on primetime TV this week and labeled everyone in the Republican Party effectively a domestic extremist. So that is the reason, Sean, why I think your average American, the common sense Wisconsinite that I know you know very well, is so skeptical. And then if, of course, they move forward with an indictment, Sean, my gosh, I think that is a very dangerous road to go down, because that average American is going to look at the way Hillary Clinton was treated and see the double standard, Sean, because, of course, Comey established a new standard there.
Right, he did, and that standard for Hillary Clinton does not apply to Donald Trump. And I think it's, interesting. You have the FBI, again, who they spent 4 years going after Donald Trump, harassing him. Nothing was there. They then raid his home. They don't have the common decency to tell the Intel Committee what they're doing, but they have more respect for the media, the left-wing media in which they leak to. I'm wondering if things are going to start getting cleaned up, because we heard the news that FBI agent Tim Tebow, he was seen as a left-winger. He had political bias. There's reports from whistleblowers who say that Tim Tebow was the FBI agent who was stonewalling the Hunter Biden investigation. He's out now. He says he retired. Do you see this as the FBI cleaning house, or is this just the FBI covering its backside?
Well, I hate to say it, based on what I've seen in the last 6 years, I fear it's the latter. It's a cover, a CYA move, if you will, Sean, rather than cleaning house and taking corrective action. And I should note, Sean, when I came into Congress in 2017, I came from an intelligence background. There are Marines I served with who are now law enforcement officials, FBI agents. I have profound respect for the rank and file of the FBI, that special agent who's doing a very difficult job, but I think their leadership is failing them. And there are things that I didn't think would be possible 6 years ago that now I think are possible in terms of leadership failures. And so there are other things that contribute to this pattern. For example, when a deranged leftist tried to kill a bunch of Republican members of Congress at a baseball practice in 2017, the FBI then did an investigation, never interviewed any of the Republicans that were actually there that day. Just basic professional failures, which is why I think even those rank and file FBI agents are starting to lose faith in their own leadership. So we have to clean it up. It's going to be up to a Republican majority to hold these agencies accountable, because we need the American people to trust federal law enforcement, because there are very important jobs that they do. And right now that trust is fraying, Sean. So accountability is very much on the ballot come November.
But Mike, accountability comes through transparency, and you see the kind of respect the FBI and the DOJ has for the Congress. It doesn't exist. And so the only way I think the Congress is going to get compliance from the FBI and the DOJ to have that transparency is if you hold money over their head. The Congress has the power of the purse strings. If you don't tie your oversight effort to cash for the FBI and the DOJ to fund them, I don't think they're going to cooperate. Do you think the new Congress, if Republicans take control, will tie that money to the compliance of the FBI on the oversight committees?
Well, I totally agree with that, and I do, Sean. I do. We've had extensive discussions about using a practice called fencing, which is basically you kind of draw a appropriations or authorization fence around various pots of money in order to compel whether it's the FBI or the CIA or the NSA to give you information that you are demanding. It's a shame that you actually have to do that, but that is what's necessary. The other thing I think we have to use more effectively, Sean, is our subpoena power. Because it's not just FISA abuse and the need for FISA reform. It's not just, existing questions around the Mar-a-Lago raid. It extends to various other executive branch agencies, right? For example, no one's been held accountable for the shameful surrender and ineptitude we saw on display in Afghanistan last year. No one's been held accountable at NIAID. Fauci hasn't been held accountable for the multiple lies he told throughout the pandemic. There are all sorts of areas where we have to go through each executive branch agency and start to demand basic answers. And until we have subpoena power and until we have the willingness to wield it effectively, we're not going to get those answers. So we have to use that. We have to use the power of the purse more effectively to get basic transparency and, again, start to restore competence and trust in these agencies before it's too late.
You know, Mike, I served in Congress with you for a number of terms. The problem that I see is you can win elections. Donald Trump won. You put your cabinet in place, but you have these deep staters in place that will fight a new administration who they disagree with tooth and nail. So you win an election, you have a vision for the American people, but you can't implement it because the leftist deep staters can't lose their jobs. They're protected by unions. I think we have to do something with regard to unions in the federal government so a new administration can come in and fire those who don't get on board for the new agenda.
Well, Sean, as you know well, of course, you make the fundamental distinction between private sector unions, and we know these groups in Wisconsin. You work with them, the carpenters, the pipe fitters, the road builders, the operating engineers, blue-collar, hardworking guys that invest an enormous amount into their workforce. Right. And they should be angry, by the way, about Biden magically forgiving up to $300 billion of federal student loans because they're spending all this money to invest in their workforce, largely without college degrees, right? So private sector unions, we have good friendship with them, no problem with them at all. Make the distinction with public sector unions. And there you have a weird, perverse set of incentives. I think it's fair to say they distort the democratic process because in many cases, particularly with teachers' unions, they take taxpayer salaries and they funnel that into political campaigns. And so the people that are supposed to oversee them, legislators, are dependent on them for political donations. It makes no sense. I'm reminded, Sean, of something that happened in my freshman term in Congress. We passed a law that gave the secretary of the VA the ability to fire people. Because remember, we had a series of scandals at the VA. And at the time, I thought, wait, he doesn't already have that authority? Every cabinet secretary doesn't have the authority to fire people. But it's true. And even with that authority, it's so hard to fire people because the union sues you. And how would that work in the private sector? You have to be able to fire employees that aren't performing, right? Otherwise, your government job becomes a lifetime contract, Mike, regardless of how you perform.
Listen, they're full of left-wingers. I mean, if you want to change government through elections, you got to be able to change the inner workings of the government. Mike Gallagher, always smart. Thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.